Welcome to the final installment of The Sharp Focus. I'm Ethan Greenberg, joined alongside Greg Buttle and Erik McMillan. Now, the Jets play the Browns in Week 16 in MetLife Stadium. Erik, we're going to start with you because Greg's on the show every home game, so we got to start with a guest. So for the Jets, let's just start with this. They come off their first win of the season against the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, the team is excited and for good reason, but how do you make sure that this doesn't get to your head and you don't get complacent these final 2 weeks of the season?
Well, as far as letting something get to your head or not, I don't know if that's possible. I mean, you only won one game. In my tenure of being a New York Jet, my second year in the league, if I'm not mistaken, we went 4-12, and playing on a 4-12 team can be very, very difficult. There's a lot of distractions. You got the media. You may have, hopefully you don't have anybody pointing the finger in the locker room or anything like that. But I mean, when you're losing, okay, I'm just gonna state the facts as it is. When you're playing and you're having a losing season, you're not winning your battles. You got to go into self-preservation mode. And what I mean by that is, as a player, self-preservation mode, you got to look at nobody but yourself. And you got to look at yourself in the mirror, and you got to ask yourself, did I give my best shot, when I was out there on the field? Did I make the plays that I was supposed to make? Did I contain? Did I fill the gap? Did I make the coverage? Did I knock the ball down? Did I get that interception that I almost had? I mean, you got to look at yourself and your performance and evaluate yourself. You need to study film on yourself. You need to study film on your opponent, which you should be doing that every other week anyway. But, it's really a self-preservation mode, and you're playing at a professional level. This is a job. It's a job. And if you don't do the job to the best of your ability, you can find yourself without having a job. You can be out of a job. So, I mean, you and your family, your families are dependent on you, to do the best you can do. And everything you do is in the public eye. So you're being evaluated by yourself, hopefully. You're self-evaluating. You're being evaluated by your family. You're being evaluated by the media. You're being evaluated by your coaches. And you're being evaluated by the fans. More importantly, you're being evaluated by your teammates. One motivating factor that really played into my favor, in my personal opinion, is I always played for my teammates' respect. I always did. I always wanted to play for my teammates' respect, and I wanted them to know that I'm going to be a guy you can count on, to be wherever I'm supposed to be, whenever I'm supposed to be there. Now, if you talk to any of my teammates, they'll tell you, Erik, you were never where you were supposed to be because you were doing other things, making plays in other places where you had no business. But yeah, I gambled a little bit, but I made the play. Now, if you're gambling and you ain't making plays, then you should be an outcast. You should be an outcast. And I just wish I wish these guys well. I want them to go out there and just be as professional, be the best athlete you can be. You're playing against the best, so if you want to claim to be the best, you got to play against the best. You got to go out there and perform. Bottom line.
Greg, what do you think about this matchup from like a 30,000-foot view in terms of the Jets coming off their first win and the Browns are still fighting not only for a wild card berth, but they have a chance to win the AFC North title?
You look at that football team that has but hasn't been in the playoffs in a long time. You're looking at a team that hasn't won a division in a long time. You're looking at a pretty young football team that's got some really good players on it. And the Cleveland Browns certainly are going to watch the Rams versus the Jets film and say, "Oh, we got to make sure this is right." And the one thing that I believe at this time of year, teams that are 1-13 cannot claim this, but teams that are 10-4. Let's do what you do best. You don't do things that you don't do well. Don't get out of your character. You are who you are now. You're not some other football team, or you're not going to pretend to be a football team. You are what you are. Go play to it and play it the best way you can, and then the chips fall where they may. But from 30,000 feet, the Cleveland Browns are licking their chops.
All right, well, let's dive into this matchup a little further. Erik, Greg kind of mentioned each team, especially playoff teams, are going to do what they do well at this point in the season. The Browns run the ball very well with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and off of that, they have a lot of play action with Baker Mayfield. So as someone that is a former safety. I want to stick in the secondary here. The Jets might have some revolving pieces. Javelin Guidry has not practiced so far this week. He's a starting nickel corner for the Jets. So basically last week, the Jets had a corner in Arthur Millette who played safety, who hasn't played safety in his professional career. He might move down to the slot, which would mean that another player, whether that's a different corner or another safety, a backup safety, would start next to Marcus May. So, Erik, I'm curious, how difficult is that to change in midseason, essentially, where you have a bunch of moving pieces from corner to safety, safety to corner, and you're not quite sure who's going to be up and who's going to be down?
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul out there in the secondary. I mean, you putting guys in spots where, they haven't probably been there in years. It's difficult. And football is the ultimate team sport. You got to be able to play with your teammate for a certain amount of time in order to have some trust and knowledge that that individual is going to be where he's supposed to be. So you can do what you got to do, and players don't have to try to compensate for, well, I know this guy, he doesn't see very well, so I'm going to cover the curl and the flat and leave, you're going to ultimately leave something open. Or I'm going to, come down and play this dig route and leave the post route, open because, our linebackers not dropping well. Chemistry is a big part of this deal. Baker Mayfield, that guy throws the ball very well. He's got some talented receivers, and they're pretty good on their pass routes. They're pretty shifty and nifty on their cuts when they plant and drive out of their routes. I mean, they can give you some misdirection. They got a lot working in their favor. And when you look at the Jets record, Buttle said it best. They got to be licking their chops. But once again, I'm a Jet till I die, and in order to play like a Jet, you got to get out there and fly around, especially defensively. You got to fly around and just make plays, just make tackles. Yeah, they're gonna make some mistakes because they got people playing out of position. They got some obstacles they really got to overcome, and I look at it like this: next guys got to step up.
All right, I like it. And to your point, Quinnen Williams he was just placed on injured reserve, so he'll be gone the rest of the season. And that's a big blow to this Jets defense, Greg. When you look at what the Browns do well in terms of running the ball, if the Jets want to have a chance to stop the run, now they don't have Quinnen Williams, they don't have Harvey Longy. What do you expect out of that group that is getting Foley Fatukasi back in the lineup?
I don't know. It changes every week. I mean, I think Quinnen Williams was really coming into his own the last half of the football season, and now he's gone. So you take that one guy that is in the backfield. Shepard played very well last week. I would expect you get the same thing out of Shepard, but it still comes down to one thing, and that is forget the run. Anybody can run the ball. You don't run the ball to score. You run the ball to win. You throw it to score. And the way that the Cleveland Browns score points, they really put pressure on you through the air all up and down the football field. They only have allowed 17 or 18 sacks, so their offensive line has been playing very well. It's a strength against what you would call a Jets weakness, the pass rush of the Jets. And then if you get Landry, Landry is their leading receiver by twice as many receptions as anybody on their team. But that's your go-to guy. What are you going to do? You're going to allow the go-to guy catch the ball and do everything else? You're going to double that go-to guy? You may not get a pass rush this week. Your guys are out. So it's about a defensive coordinator trying to say, okay, what are we going to do? You're going to load up and stop a run that at the end of the day may mean nothing, or are you going to prevent the pass? Am I going to play a little more nickel than running? All right, we'll give them a few yards here. So what if they gain 5 yards a carry? It's about winning a football game, and I think that in order to win football games in the NFL, you better stop the pass.
Emac, I'm curious, what's your take on Mekhi Becton, Myles Garrett? Because I know a lot of eyes are going to go in the trenches this week, much like last week with the Jets offensive line, the Rams defensive line led by Aaron Donald. Do you think Myles Garrett is the best opponent that Mekhi Becton will probably see one-on-one this season? And what have you made out of Becton so far?
Two very good athletes. It's kind of tough to say, man. It's kind of tough to say. There's a lot of talk about who's the best guy at every position, in the league. They're all claiming to be the best, but I don't really get into all that. Who's the best? But will this other guy be the best guy that he'll see all season? It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. But we're still talking about who's the best and who's not the best. If you want to, like I said earlier, if you want to be the best and you think this guy is one of the best in the league, then you need to trounce him. You need to do something with him. You need to stop him. You need to prevent him from doing his job and do yours in a big way. That's the way I look at it.
Emac, just to follow up on that, bouncing out to the receivers here for the Jets. When you look at what the Jets did last week, they got the ball out of Sam Darnold's hands very quickly. He only threw for 207 yards. He completed 70% of his passes, a very good rate. But now let's say if from a secondary perspective, let's say the Browns decide to creep up and press the Jets receivers. Do you think that could be an opportunity for Sam Darnold to potentially go deep on with some of his receivers like Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mims who have speed?
It's a possibility. He's got to have some time. He's got to throw some accurate balls. He was throwing quick last week. When I looked at the injury report for the Jets, it looks like we got a lot of defensive players that are out. So, 4 safeties, 3 linebackers, 2 D linemen, a corner, and then you got 1 O lineman that I see right now out of the 13. So, I guess several of the offensive guys would be back, for the game, and there should be some opportunities. If they do come up and press, you got to take your shots. I mean, what do you have to lose? Go ahead and take your shots, man. And you got to throw some deep balls in order to open up some short stuff as well. So I mean, one plays off the other, short versus long.
Greg, just going off that point where the pass rush and the secondary go hand in hand, what do you think that the Jets need to do against this Browns defense in order to give themselves a chance to win?
They've got to be able to contain Baker Mayfield. I'd like to have the short guy in a pocket, and I like to have him surrounded by them big, tall guys. I don't like him running around on the outside. And that being said, just in terms of a simple statistical look at something, the Browns score about 26 points a game. They give up 26 points a game. You can get to the NFL playoffs by scoring 26 points a game. The question after that is going to be, can you really get advanced in the playoffs giving up 26 points a game? Because defensive points allowed is going to be probably the number 1 or 2 factor in football teams getting good into the playoffs and then winning a Super Bowl. So you look at the Cleveland Browns and you look at it and say, my thing is, what's their weakness? It's their secondary. They're giving up points. Forget running the ball. We can always run the ball. You could screen them. It's about making the big plays in the passing game against what I think is a subject secondary in the Cleveland secondary. So to me, that's what the Jets have to do. Now how Adam Gase does it, he's the head coach. But to me, you got to figure out a way to do something like that. And maybe your defense will be able to make a big play. Marcus May made a big play last week. Quinton Williams, you had probably 5 different guys on defense last week make big plays that stopped a third and long, that stopped a 4th down, that stopped a 3rd and long down at the goal line, a 4th down pass. So can you get them again? It's hard. It's hard to get them again when you're giving up over 26 points a game defensively, and you got a bunch of young guys running around a secondary that aren't even in their right positions.
Emac, circling back on the Browns here, when you look at Baker Mayfield, we talked about him. You look at his numbers, especially the last 4 games, very impressive, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. But one thing that Greg kind of alluded to is he's not a tall quarterback, and that was the knock on him coming out of college. So just from like an X's and O's standpoint, maybe a game plan perspective, what do you have to do to try to impair Baker Mayfield's vision looking at his receivers and his tight ends?
Buttle said it best. Keep that little guy in the pocket and keep those tall trees around him. Have those big 6'9", 6'8" linemen coming up there showing color behind the offensive linemen. And you definitely got to keep him in the pocket, because when that cat gets outside, man, he's pretty magical out there. He finds people to throw it to. He's got a little bit of speed, for a quarterback. We don't see too many quarterbacks running away from people at the line of scrimmage like he does to pick up first downs a lot. He's pretty accurate, once he moves to his right. Fairly decent, throwing to his left as well. But Buttle said it best. Keep that guy contained. You don't want that guy running around in back there. Keep him in the pocket. You can keep him in the pocket and cover guys. I think the defense needs to just, not play man to man so much. Since we got a lot of unknown people playing out there, and just kind of keep everything in front of us. Have the DBs play off a little bit, keep everything in front of us, and break up on the ball after it's thrown, kind of thing. And maybe have some combination coverage, but they're gonna have some combination coverages where it will be man with people playing over the top. Have some guys take a chance and go for it. Go for an interception, tip the ball up. Maybe we can catch a tip ball here or there. Anything can happen, man. As long as guys play hard, anything's possible at any given time.
Emac, just to follow up on that, when we talked about the moving pieces in the secondary a lot, and reading your keys and your eyes, very important every week. But do you think it's more in focus this week with a play action heavy offense and inexperienced players, whether that's at corner and safety for the Jets?
Absolutely. You definitely got to read your keys, and you definitely got to read pattern recognition. You got to recognize the pass patterns. And that's kind of what you work on in practice. You practice against, a scout team. You have guys run, the pass patterns that the other team will run, and you kind of see where you fit in on every single coverage that D coordinator chooses to run, and see, how close can you get to the ball, by running these coverages. But yeah, you definitely got to keep your eyes in the right place. With guys being out of place, if they run the ball, once the ball hits the line of scrimmage, okay, come on, let's go. All right. But if it's a play action and the quarterback fakes the guy that just ran the ball and he keeps it, and you're running up in the line, that could be a big issue. You might have some people open back there. So with inexperience back there, the eyeballs on the right things are extremely critical.
Greg, last week, much has been made out of Braden Mann's open field tackle on the Rams returner. I'm just curious, in your playing days, you ever seen a punter tackle somebody like that?
Actually, no, I have not, and I thought it was the game-saving play. I in the post-game show, I really wanted to give him the MVP award for the game, only because I always say, listen, everybody plays a lot of plays in there, and yeah, maybe the cumulative number of plays someone plays, they do enough to win a football game. But when you have one player make a play that saves a game, I think that's awesome. Now, he may never do it again the rest of his life. And it looked like he was wincing in pain afterwards, but I mean, he's a mensch. He went after it. He made the play, and you got to give a punter all the kudos in the world for him to make that play with a running back or a wide receiver that's coming at him and can make him shake and bake like you can't believe, and he still makes the tackle. Thought it was great.
Just following up on that, Greg, do you feel like the Jets finally put together its best performance of complementary football last week? And how do you build off of that?
Well, without a question, we talk about complementary football, and a lot of times you don't get it, but you still win. Let's be honest. But if you're hunting for a win, man, when you make an interception, you got to score a touchdown. When you fumble the ball, you've got to prevent the other team from doing anything other than kicking a field goal. So that's complementary. But a lot of times it doesn't work out. But what happens is later on in the game, someone makes big plays. And so you really didn't play complementary, but you had guys that made big plays. That was the first game that I can tell you, offensively and defensively, different guys to the tune of about 7 or 8 made big plays when the Jets when the Jets needed big plays. If you want to call that complementary football, go ahead. I call it, that's the NFL, baby. That's the way you win. You get a team that doesn't think much of you, and they maybe come in there and they're off the mental edge. Then you take advantage of them and you do something like that. boy, it makes a plane ride home a lot better than it would have if you lost that close game and played well and played complementary football.
And that is how we wrap up the Sharp Focus season finale. The Jets play the Browns Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Erik, Greg, thanks a lot, and Happy New Year.